I am Doug Friedman.
I am Kenzie Janess.
And this is Your Mental Breakdown,
the podcast.
With us and you.
And me.
I said you.
And you.
You're part of us.
Yeah, but I am also me. I am you and we are me.
You're differentiating yourself?
We are all together.
Can't we just be one enmeshed little ball of...
Really?
No.
No, probably not healthy. So today we're talking about enmeshment. Is it bad?
Enmeshment?
I don't know.
I think enmeshment is bad. Codependence in and of itself, I don't know that that's necessarily bad when it becomes like a codependent relationship.
Right. Okay.
That's different.
You know what? This could be a topic, if not right now in this moment, then another time.
We're here. I mean, boom, right off the bat.
Okay.
This is a therapy podcast, you know.
Codependency.
Yes.
I think has been co-opted or misunderstood highly lately in pop psych world, probably because of social media.
Sure.
But people thinking that codependent just means enmeshed or just having a very highly dependent relationship.
Sure.
But that's not actually what codependency is. Like, it started out of like a relationship with an alcoholic and feeling like you kind of enable that behavior by being so, you know, enraptured in it and wanting to help them so much that you become so dependent on them needing you.
Right.
But I just find it interesting that now I feel like everyone is just
I think where codependence comes in, not just being codependent. I think there's a misnomer. People think codependent is, we depend on each other.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
That's interdependence.
Yeah, yes,
right?
which is healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
Codependence, it's when there's an imbalance in the relationship. Somebody relies more on somebody else to meet their needs. And it enables them, both people, one to be the victim and to allow for that, and the other to be the saver or the,
the savior. Yes.
Savior.
I have so many clients like that.
Not saver.
Saver.
I was going with giver and savior at the same time.
Wow, Doug, do we need to start over? Are you going to be okay?
I'm doing the tongue twisters. That's right.
Oh my God. And you're usually the one that's very
What I want to know is how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
See, he has to prove that he can actually talk.
Speak?
Yeah.
You know, we had to do it for acting. We would have to emulate putting a cork in our mouth and say tongue twisters.
A cork in your mouth?
Like you put your fingers in your mouth as though like if you had a cork, I think for one class we all had to like put a cork in our mouth and hold a cork with our teeth and speak words. It's a practice in enunciating. Yeah.
I mean, we did similar-ish adjacent things in choir, but it was mostly to warm up our vocal cords.
Yeah.
But the red, I can't even do it
once.
Red
leather, yellow leather.
I can't do it. Red leather, yellow leather. I have to do it slow.
What about Susie sells seashells by the seashore?
No. Susie sells, I have to think so hard. Oh, the prefrontal cortex. Okay. Susie sells seashells by the seashore. That was so hard. It shouldn't have been that hard, but it was.
What about Sarah? Sarah sitting on a Chevrolet. All day long she sits and shifts, sits and shifts, sits and shifts. All day long she sits and shifts. Sarah sitting on a Chevrolet.
What? Did you make that up for Sarah?
It's an old one. No, but it works.
What? I've never heard that one before.
Go ahead, try it.
I don't even know what you just said.
Sarah sitting on a Chevrolet. All day long she sits and shifts. Shifts.
You're asking for people to say shits, Doug. Come on.
Yeah, well.
Every day she sits and shifts. She sits and shifts. I can't not think of shit. I'm sorry. You started this. All right. What did you actually want to talk about? There was something, wasn't there?
Yes. Codependence.
Codependence.
Yeah. And we'll get to a question too.
Okay.
But the codependence, that meeting somebody's need.
Did you look up the definition?
I can.
Because I'm actually curious.
Well, it's funny because there's probably several different definitions depending on what lens or what context you're looking for. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Because codependence, as a psychological term, will mean what we're talking about, and that will be the imbalance in a relationship where somebody plays the savior or the giver and somebody is enabled to be the victim. Yeah, right?
I guess it makes sense because I think with a lot of things in psychology, we've like broadened things out of just illness and addiction, right? Because that's part of this definition.
Well, that's where it came out of, like I think it was co-alcoholic, co-chemical dependence.
Exactly. Yeah. Excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner, typically one who requires support on account of an illness or addiction.
There you go.
But I think nowadays it's like, okay, maybe they don't have an illness or an addiction, or they just have like a mental illness or something.
Or they're just anxious.
Or they're
and
just
they rely
anxious
on me and they, right?
and victimized or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in relationships, we can do that for each other, and that's okay. There can be a balance. I think it's when codependence becomes an imbalance and we play those roles and we rely on the other person and not ourselves. That's maybe when it's an issue.
Yeah, right. Oh, we could talk about it in the context of therapy too. Like at what point, haven't we talked about this before? Like at what point do you realize that you need to be your own therapist, or is that even possible, right? Like the balance of relying on others and relying on yourself.
Right.
Ooh.
Right.
Ooh, juicy.
Yeah.
There's no answer. That's the thing. There's no answer. We get to decide. And everyone's different.
Well, I think as a therapist, as long as you're checking in with your client.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yes, in the context of therapy.
Which will lead us to a question that we got.
Oh, you're right. Good segue.
We got this one on social media. I don't know if I can say this person's name because I didn't ask if they can be outed. So if I don't out you as asking the question, I apologize because I didn't get your permission.
Your permission.
Man, tongue is twisted.
I love it.
All right.
Okay,
well,
hit me.
I'll just say this came from M.
Okay. Hi, M.
Question for the pod. As a therapist, how do you decide how much support you offer outside of session? My previous therapist would suggest that an email or would offer a short phone call as needed for additional support. My current therapist has never offered anything additional. She will, however, help me come up with a plan on who I can reach out to in my life for support between sessions. Eye roll.
Yeah, I was going to say you better include that eye roll.
Eye roll.
LOL.
LOL. Do therapists usually have a set way they work, or is it sometimes based on the client?
Okay. Who has the ball? I have so many thoughts and feelings, and so do you, I'm
Bring
sure.
it out.
Well,
Let's
okay,
go.
first of all, the eye roll. M, we've got feelings about this. First and foremost, I would say talk to your therapist about it. Right? Like, come on. Like, you bring this up with your therapist. Like, at the very least, to ask their thought process on it and what they think, right? So that it's not this mystery to you. Because if you clearly care about it, I would hope that you feel safe and comfortable enough to ask your therapist what their reasoning is.
Yeah. And that kind of is where we were talking about the codependence. Like, I'm not saying that you're codependent or you have a codependent relationship with your therapist. Not at all. But looking at what is there in me that just needs to know that I have this support there for me. Yeah.
Even if you don't use it, but something is telling you that you want it or you feel like you need that.
Yeah.
Just existing.
Right. And if the therapist is saying, no, I can't do that, but I can tell you who to contact. Like, whoa, that almost feels like abandonment. Like that's triggering this. What's going on?
Yeah. Something's coming up for you, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but the practical, logical answer here or whatever, I think it depends with most things in therapy. Obviously, all therapists are different. And also all contexts of therapy are different. So if you work in like a high acuity setting, right? So like an IOP or a hospital, residential treatment center, right? Like there might be rules in place where you have more support. Or if you do real DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and maybe you're working with borderline personality disorder or something that's more severe.
In a setting where that's the norm, then that's what you do. But I think this is geared towards
private practice.
Yeah. As a private practice therapist, it's just somebody like out there doing their own thing. What's the standard and how do people figure out what they do? I mean, you said it. Everybody's different.
It depends,
They're going to do what they want to do. They might have boundaries.
Yeah, it just depends on obviously the therapist and their boundaries and how they take care of themselves and kind of situate their career and their time management and scheduling. And I think hopefully it depends on your level of need. And if I have a client who's in crisis, I am the therapist who's going to say, email me or call me and we can have a little check-in if you need it, if they're in crisis mode. Or we'll even increase sessions if we need to do that, if that's appropriate. But it's a case-by-case basis, I think. Yeah. So I think going back just full circle, like talk to your therapist because who knows, maybe there is a misunderstanding of how much support you need, or maybe you are just simply being triggered and something is coming up for you because you want to know that they would be there for you in a crisis.
Yeah. And it might be about the therapist, not about the client.
Oh,
right?
Totally. Yeah.
Like for me earlier in my career, I would say to clients like, if you've got an issue over the weekend, give me a call. No problem. I'm around.
Yeah.
Because I came from 24/7 crisis work where I was used to that.
Yeah.
Right. And when I realized, oh, wait, now I don't have my own life. I need to have a life outside of therapy. That's even when clients have terminated with me and they go, hey, can we grab dinner or like have lunch or something? I'd like to just talk to you.
Oh, absolutely not.
Why?
to me, that's like red flag. Like my alarm system goes off because that's like an ethical violation, like a boundary violation.
What
because
if it's
now
been 2 years after you terminated?
Okay. Well, you didn't include that
no,
part.
No, but I am now. But let's just say that.
Okay, if it's been 2 years, then yeah, I mean, ethically and legally, you're allowed to do that. It certainly brings up some stuff for me. You can tell I'm getting nervous just talking about it. Because
got your arms folded
like
and you're
squeezing, I'm sweating. Yeah, because it's such a sensitive topic about boundaries and therapy. And it does come up, honestly, a lot with my clients of like, we're not friends. Like, we can't be friends. Like,
right.
I'm your therapist, and getting lunch or doing something outside of therapy would be really blurring lines and just the power imbalance and just the things that could go wrong there, I would not want to risk.
Every therapist and every human being is different. For me, the line that I kind of learned from one of my mentors was, I can't do that because if I did, it would be too hard for me to have my own life. The lines would just be blurred and I would feel I was in this zone all the time. Some people can take that therapist hat off, but like, Kenzie and I, we were talking, Kenzie and I, I'm looking at you.
Hi.
You and I.
Here.
We were talking for a while about sounding like a psychotherapist. Don't psychoanalyze me. When people say
use that psychobabble.
Right. You're just like, I've always been like this. Right.
Yeah.
So if I'm seeing former clients out socially, I'm going to be more acutely aware that I'm like that. Because that's how our relationship was.
It's
that's
the role that you play in their
right.
life. It would be really hard, I think, to segue into or transition into a friend or other type of role in their life because you're so used to sitting across from this person and being the therapist.
Right.
And the imbalance there is that you know so much about the client and they do not know almost anything about you. I mean, they know some basics maybe, but they don't really know you, and they're getting the therapist version of you, which is not fake, but it's a version of you.
Sure.
And I just think that could do harm that I would not want to risk doing.
Yeah, harm or just imbalance or inequity in a relationship.
I
think that for the question that Em was asking us, I would say, yes, Kenzie, I agree. Talk to your therapist about that because it might bring up something where you just go, I like having that as a safety net. I'm not saying I would call all the time or have a short phone call, but like you said, if you're going through something, I don't necessarily want a second session this week, but I just want to can I just check in? You know, I've had clients, I think you guys have heard when Drew's gone through a breakup in the past, we'll have 2 sessions during the week or we'll have a phone session that we don't necessarily record for the podcast and just go, use me. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Right. If you can't access me from our session to 7 days later and you need to, and you can't access the tools, call me. We can do a quick check-in.
Right. Things do come up.
Totally.
I think we're similar. We're like, well, okay, that is our job. We are providing that service. And we also, just on a human level, I care about you. I would hate myself if I not let something bad happen. But if I, in hindsight, couldn't look back and say, well, I did everything I could to be there for that person in an ethical, boundary, healthy way. But that's just me. And I'm very curious what your therapist thinks. Wish we could have them here to give their perspective.
Yeah, give us the follow-up. Give us the follow-up. Because I'm more curious about what happens when you bring it up with the therapist. Right?
Me too. I love these conversations in therapy.
And it might be something where the therapist goes, oh, well, this is just how I do it, period.
Could be hard boundaries.
Right. But I would be more interested in if the therapist goes, oh, well, what's coming up for you? What's that about? And,
do you think you need extra support? Yeah.
Do you think you need extra support? Or does that settle your anxiety knowing that I'm there? Did it feel abandoning when I said I can't be there?
Yeah, it's so juicy.
Did it feel dismissive when I said, oh, well, just find your own friends. Don't bother me.
It clearly brought something up. Yeah. Right. And that's not a bad thing. I think we should acknowledge that it brought something up, and that's fodder for therapy.
There are a lot of therapists that, and you've heard me do it as a tool, that will say something purposefully to get a reaction from a client.
Oh, yes. Right? Yes, you do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll get a client mad at me. So you come in the next week and go, God, I was so mad because this. Like, cool, now we can deal with that. Now
that's
we got
transference and countertransference.
Right? Bring it.
And just reenacting things sometimes can really drudge up the shit that you really need to work on.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool. I love these meta, transparent kind of conversations about the relationship that's occurring in the room. I think can be some of the best work in therapy.
Oh, yeah.
So bring
Love
it up and please keep us posted.
You know what we can bring up?
What? Sarah?
Sure. Let's go with Sarah.
Cool. All right.
Because something does come up for her.
Oh, something comes up. All right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. We'll get into it. I'm getting ahead of myself.
We'll get into it.
But I just love Sarah.
Okay. So not to get ahead of ourselves, just to stay right in it.
Yes.
2 things to stay right in it.
Okay.
1, if you guys want to stay right in it, find us on social media, reach out to us like Em did, and give us a question, give us a comment.
Please.
Rate us, review us.
Yeah.
Share us with your friends and enemies and frenemies.
Yes. All of the above.
Sure.
Foes, friends. Yeah. All of them.
You can email us at info@yourmentalbreakdown.com on all the social media platforms. We're probably your.mental.breakdown. Just search for us and you'll find us. The second thing, though, is that this particular session comes on the heels of her eulogy for the shirt, right?
Right, it does.
Remember we did that?
Yeah, I do remember.
So I have this in the back of my mind, or maybe the middle of my mind, going into the session like, okay, cool. She just had the eulogy poem that was beautiful. It was really emotional.
Yeah.
Let's see how that sat with her. Let's see what's going on. And
then whoop, something hits the fan, because that's how life happens.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like all day long, she just sits and shifts, shifts.
Oh my God.
Sits and shifts.
Okay, we're going to shift gears now and get into the session.
Well done.
Thank you. I'm learning.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
How's it going?
It's going.
Yeah.
Been a bit of a situation week. So my ex-husband and his Satan of a woman girlfriend are breaking up.
Oh, wow.
So my children are being quite ruffled by the whole thing. She came into their lives. They were very young. They were around 5 and 6. Like officially came into their lives around 5 and 6. And right away, she made them call her mom, made them refer to her son as their stepbrother. Like she just right in there. Right. So I believe my children's hearts adapted to that in a way that is quite painful for them to now have to let go of.
Right.
On the other hand, they're teenagers now. It's been close to 2 years that they've been very aware of how sort of psycho that whole side of their life is, and how crazy it is over there versus just anywhere else. So I think there's a part of them that feels happy about it. But of course, especially son has a lot of problems with change. He likes to have notice.
Right.
If we're going to move, I'll tell him 6 months in advance. Like they know that the situation with their dad is very unhealthy.
Sure.
It still takes him a long time to adjust. Plus, she had a son. So obviously the two of them became very close. That is what he told me last night is the hardest part for him. And of course, the fact that somebody forced him to look at them as their second mother. And then apparently the night before last, they were sitting around. So girlfriend makes some sort of comment like, well, if you and stepbrother are going to the same school, you better not lay a fucking hand on my son. Son's like, why would I do that? He's my brother. Girlfriend's response, verbatim from him, he's not your fucking brother. After what, 7 years of being told?
Right.
Anyways, it's all very traumatizing, I think, for a child. She is very traumatizing, even from a distance. And I'm a fucking adult who couldn't give 2 shits about this person, except that she's in my children's life. And I've had to work very hard to not just walk over there and punch a bitch. And I think I've even told you, if there was anyone I was ever going to punch a bitch, it would be her. In my sort of more healthier mental state, I've actually pictured punching a bitch, not literally, but writing. Like, I am having a bit of a moment where I want to just tell her some shit.
I actually like hearing that from you. That's showing me that you're aware of the emotion that's in there. You're aware of these strong feelings, and there's a lot of anger in you, but nowhere to direct it. And where does it go out? Not that you need to direct it all towards girlfriend. It's not necessarily that.
But she may deserve it.
I don't care if she deserves it. You deserve to let it out. It's when we stay so composed and keep it inside so much, we blow up.
I've been having these images in my mind, not of physically punching a bitch, but really telling her how it is. Because for 7, maybe 8 years, I have just bit my tongue, not said a word, just taken all the abuse, ignored it or absorbed it, however I had to deal with it, and just tried to carry on living my life.
Right.
What girlfriend brought to the relationship was just pure crazy. Like there's no way, there wasn't even ways for me to explain it to my children.
It's something that, at least with ex-husband, you know what you're getting, and it's logical, but it's his logic. With
Exactly.
Girlfriend, it's not logical. It's purely emotional.
Yeah, it's purely emotional, but crazy. Even if you're angry,
Right.
You would say to the kid who you forced to call you mom and forced to call your son his stepbrother, you know what? I am sorry that things didn't work out between your dad and I'm so glad that you and stepbrother have a relationship where you consider him your brother. Then go into another room and yell at ex-husband. Do that all fucking day long, but do not punish my children for your psychosis.
So what's sort of the impact? Like what's happened?
Ex-husband, daughter, come home, son is crying, and him and stepbrother are standing outside the house on the street. Son is crying on stepbrother's shoulder, and they jump in the car and tell ex-husband to take his stepbrother to his dad's house. The kids are basically couch surfing with their dad right now until he figures out a way to kick girlfriend out of the house. It's a lot. Daughter became wise to girlfriend about a year ago. She gave girlfriend a what for moment. I was so proud of her. We talked about it. She just looked at her as a human. She realized this is not entirely this person. She got some shit to deal with. So do I.
Right.
But at least I'm dealing with it. Son doesn't really look at that kind of thing. His overall picture is dad, stepmom, stepbrother. That's the picture that just got shattered for him. And by her cussing at him when he called his stepbrother his brother, what is wrong with a human to do something like that? And all of a sudden it's just ripped away.
Tell me a little bit about the impact on you, and hit for me a little bit about ex-husband. Communication with you around this, has ex-husband softened up, or is it, no, okay, nothing.
Zero.
Nothing. Yeah.
No communication. And in fact, so when daughter was telling me some stuff and she was like, Mom, you can't say anything because I'm not supposed to tell you. And I'm like, okay, well then I assume your dad's going to tell me because this obviously affects all of us. I overheard a few things from daughter and I put some pieces together, but she told me you guys are not allowed to talk to me. And he says, well, no, dad just said he doesn't want you to think bad of him. But in what world do you judge somebody for a breakup? I mean, breakups happen. So this just goes towards ex-husband. It's narcissism, which we've talked about many, many times. But the first thing I thought when the kids told me was, oh man, poor ex-husband. Honestly, and you know how much I do not have any kind of regard for him. But that was my first thought. Oof. That was my first reaction. Never in a million years. Oh my God, what an idiot, having a breakup. I mean, what can I do to make this work for me? That would never even cross my mind.
Right.
But also, if it was boyfriend and I, we would have discussed the breakup, how it would take place, and I would have informed ex-husband prior to screaming and hollering, which obviously would never happen. That's who I am, and that's what I would do.
Right. Yeah. And that's you. And that's partly why you ex-husband, partly why you guys are not together, because he is very much not like that. And clearly neither is girlfriend. Your kids certainly understand that it's a different household, a different way of doing things. But I mean, that's pretty impactful. We're talking about your teenage son crying.
Yeah. And son almost never cries. Yeah. So she really struck a chord. And from a very young age, where you are literally still figuring out your connections, you know, at 5 years old, you either have love in your life and happiness, or you have a lot of sorrow and pain. And he thought he had love and happiness and a brother, which to him was like Christmas Day.
Yeah. I think there's something about, there's a shock about, you know, how girlfriend was talking and what's going on. Sounds like it might be pretty abrupt, and it's happening fast, and it's happening not the way you would do it, where we talk about it. And on top of that, it's just something that has a pretty deep impact on the kids, probably more so son than daughter, because we are talking about, you know, a brother, like somebody you're really close to.
Yes.
And that's understanding what it is for him might be tough.
And I did say to son, because I was, you know, I'm learning to let my kids sort of be in their moment and wait and not try to fix it. I can't fix this. Even 9 months ago, Sarah couldn't fix this. So my follow-up question to him was, what, you know, do you have any idea why she reacted that way? And his response was, because she's crazy. And I was like, well, I mean, you're not wrong.
You can now process this with son. And it's kind of similar to when we talked about daughter reading Where the Red Fern Grows and you allowing her to cry, you know, you being there for that. It's you being there for son and what he's experiencing. And, you know, whether or not he has feelings about ex-husband, girlfriend, breaking up, fine. But it's, I'm not going to be in a household with brother anymore. And I don't know how often he was there when they were there, but yeah, what's that like for you?
Yeah, it's a huge, huge loss for him.
Right.
Huge.
Right. And I think it will be really interesting for you to just allow for his emotion if they are there, and he might not. He might be guarded. He might not want to talk, but it's allowing that to be what it is without him just going, oh, I'm fine, Mom. It's fine. You'll hear if he's doing the keep calm, Mom, I can handle this, right? His version of that. And what we want to create is, you don't have to handle this. Like, let's put the suitcase on the bed, pop it open, and open up that compartment and what's going on.
Yeah. And I did tell him, I said, you know, when you're ready, I'm always here, like, no judgment. I understand that this is super difficult for you, and I want to be here to talk with you about it, but I don't want to force you through his whole life. I've just had to sort of let him know or confirm to him, I'm here as your actual mother. There's nothing you can say to me that is going to upset me or make me angry at you. I'm here.
Right.
And sometimes he'll finally get to the point where he comes in the room and he'll close the door and he's like, can I just lay here for a little bit? And that's when I know he's sort of getting to that point where he's ready to open up.
Yeah.
But I do also see an element of his, I think we've discussed this, but when I was married to his ex-husband, his family is very much about hiding your feelings, which I think kind of bode well for me at the time, because I was also very much about hiding my feelings.
Sure.
So, but they're that sort of old school, old money where something happens, it's not proper to have an episode or have any kind of feelings. You just agree, you move on, and you never, ever talk about it.
What do you think of that now?
I mean, even when I was with ex-husband, as guarded as I was when you met me, my phrase to him every time anything happened on a daily basis, my words to him were, can we please use our words?
Right.
Can we please talk about why you are acting this way? It's like, help me understand. And of course, my understand was so I can fix it, which now I know, or now I'm learning, really isn't helpful. But what is helpful is using your words. I did try, because I was trying to stay with him for the sake of the children. But I also had my own issues with being scared of the abuse, and also being attached to the abuse.
What do you mean by that?
There's a part of me that's, over the last however many months we've been working together, has looked back at my past relationships that were pretty not good.
Right.
And how much I just kind of got lost in them. It was almost as if I was comfortable with the abuse and the feeling of degradation. But it took me 2 years of being completely single to prove to myself that I didn't need that kind of man in my life, or woman, or whoever. You know how they say, like, women always look for a husband that's like their father, or men date their mothers. Sure. And I don't think it's my father specifically, but I think it does relate back to the way I grew up, or the way I learned what love, and I use air quotes, was as a child. It was mean. It was harsh. It was, I'm going to beat you until you pass out, and then you're going to get up and you're going to thank me for the beating and give me a hug.
Right.
So, because what they told us was, the reason we're beating you half to death is because we love you.
Right. Yep. So
when you're
learn.
5, 6 years old, that's what makes somebody, that's what love is.
Right.
Somebody who abuses you and puts you down and cuts you and doesn't give you an identity and all those things. There's a part of me that always knew that wasn't fucking love. But now that I'm looking at it sort of from this, I don't know, learning space that I'm in right now with you, there's a part of it that made me feel comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you said it. I'm going to tweak what you said just a little bit, because you said they didn't give you an identity. Well, the tweak is they didn't allow you to have an identity, right? They took your identity away from you, and they told you what it was. Mm-hmm. There's something awful about that, and something comfortable in that. Oh, they're going to tell me who to be, how to be, what to do. Okay, I know how to be. Nothing bad happens to me when I can do this. That's comfortable. I know the rules. Got it.
Yep.
And it's something that, yes, you did find in partners an element of that, because it was familiar. I know my role. It's going to sound horrible. I know my role when I'm put in my place. It's all those things that sound horrible to say and are true. I don't have to think for myself. It's great.
Oh, I'm not allowed to think for myself.
And I'm not allowed to think for myself. That's actually...
Which is comfortable because I was never allowed. Yeah.
Right. You said it about ex-husband too. Like, if I can just do this and do that, or not do this or not do that, then it'll be okay. Cool. So I can focus on that and just be that, just do that.
Yeah.
And we keep playing that out. And I think what you have worked very hard to do is uncover and rediscover your identity.
Yes, I did. And I did that just, I think, from sheer willpower at the beginning when I divorced ex-husband. Now I'm doing it from a place where I'm actually admitting that I need help and getting help. I had lost all sight of myself. I had completely forgotten who I was by the time I was done with that marriage. So those 2 years were me trying to break down all that, punch through, go back to actual Sarah, remind myself who I was and how awesome I was. But there was, and what it did do was attract someone like boyfriend to me. Honestly, never in my life have I been attracted to or attracted a man that is just good. He's just living life and being good to me, to everybody, to himself. I don't know. It's different. It's a different experience than I've ever had.
You know, it's interesting because that's it's loaded, because we're talking about there's a certain identity.
Always.
Right? There's a certain identity that I took on, or that was given to me, that was allowed for me to have.
Yeah.
And that's familiar. So we find comfort in what's familiar, so we keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's interesting that in the eulogy you wrote, you called it the badge of honor that you'd carry around, that I could just keep calm and handle it, right? That I can do that I can do that.
Yeah.
And what you're describing in how you met boyfriend, how you brought that into your life, there's a different badge of honor. It's an internal badge of honor. It's a lot, I think, stronger, and it's certainly more authentic to who you are and what you want in your life. And then things like girlfriend, or what she said to son, are so startling because it's in contrast to how you now are. It's interesting that I'm hearing all this, and I'm seeing a potential for a family bonding exercise, experiment.
It's so weird you say that, because that's literally what I've there's a part of me that's so hopeful for that.
Yeah.
Even including ex-husband in this sort of family bonding experience, because before girlfriend, ex-husband and I were co-parenting, we were getting divorced on very amicable grounds. And then from one day to the next, it was like the world's biggest fucking nightmare. So there's a teeny tiny part of me that's super hopeful that maybe, just maybe, during this period of time, I can try and at least repair our parenting relationship, because that is really to all that's important to me. There's a part of me that my heart breaks every time the kids leave my house, because I know that something hurtful or something that is not positive is going to happen to them. And they're just going to have to do what I did my whole childhood and just grin and bear it, cry in private, and they're going to become me. They're going to become that kid.
Cry in private, right? You know, the exercise that I'm thinking of is one that does not involve ex-husband. That just involves, really, it's honestly you and son right now, because he seems the most affected by it so far. It might just be like having a go at the punching bag, you know? it might be really interesting to watch you parent him and allow for the feelings to come out without necessarily having to express it or talk about it or do it. Just
he knocks that thing over every time with one punch. Like it just falls completely over and I have to pick it back up.
Right.
I'm like, you're not actually supposed to kill the punching bag.
Right. And maybe it's hey, you know how you kill my punching bag? I want to take you to a boxing gym and just see you like go at it there. What do you think? Do you want to do it? Do you want to try?
Yeah.
Some version of that. I don't know what it is, but exploring that with him at the very least, just to acknowledge that there's some emotion that needs to come out in a physical way that doesn't have to be verbal.
Yes.
And it certainly doesn't need to stay inside. So maybe even just by virtue of opening it up to that with him, it will open him up in a way. Right? Have your focus be on him. My focus is going to be on you, but just have your focus be on him and allow that and see what happens.
Thank you, Doug.
Don't force it, but see if something kind of comes up, with an opportunity for son, because we're really looking at, can you just invite him to express something in a physical way? And we're back.
We're back. Can I just say from the top here, and I will go in consecutive order here, but or chronological order here, but the image of Sarah letting her kids go back to dad's house, right? With ex-girlfriend.
Sure.
Letting her kids go because she knows that she has to. She doesn't have a choice, right? That image is so crushing to me. Like it really hurts and aches when I think about it.
It's similar and different that I hear parents having an experience of dropping their kids off at school for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's about they're no longer under my protection.
Yes.
And I'm giving them over to someone else and I don't know what's going to happen.
And for Sarah, it's relinquishing control. Like you can't keep calm and handle it. Like you don't even know what's going on over there.
Right. And she doesn't keep calm. And
she wants to punch a bitch.
Right. I think why that's such an image for you that's so powerful is because it's not like giving your kids over to school where you don't know what's going to happen. You're giving them over to an environment that is toxic.
Well, yeah, I was going to say it's not even school, which is neutral, arguably neutral. Maybe it depends. Right. But you're giving them up to a place where is toxic and potentially abusive and just hostile. I don't know. And there's nothing she can do. That's the hard part. Because
there's nothing she can do to shield or shelter.
Yeah. But she can take care of herself and take care of her kids when they are in her presence.
Sure.
Under her protection, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, and she can give them tools for when that's happening and explain to them what she has, that it's not about them, it's about this person. And
right.
all the stuff that I think she's already doing.
She definitely is. This whole session, my notes are just sprinkled with like, God, I love Sarah. Like, what would these kids do without her? Like, truly. Like, she's just so empathetic, not even to a fault. I think it's just so beautiful. Like, there is a quote that she said at some point in the middle of the session, like, in what world do you judge someone for a breakup? She literally said that. And I was like, Sarah, so many people do. People are assholes.
Right.
She's just like to her core, especially her ex, who we know she's got a lot of history with and doesn't approve of their relationship and everything that's gone down there. And yet she can still see things from his point of view and feel for him.
And we'll talk about this more later, but it's sort of double traumatizing and re-traumatizing for Sarah. Just that part about in what world would you judge somebody for a breakup? Well, for the ex, there's a world that he's in his movie where he's the lead actor, where it is always contentious and litigious, and he's always thinking of how to bust her or expose her. So he's probably coming from a place of don't tell your mom because this is ammunition for her.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I'm kind of hoping maybe we'll get back to like, okay, maybe we can be parents again and co-parents again.
Yeah, she has hope in this situation.
Yeah.
The first thing I said was, Mama Bear, Mama Bear coming out in parentheses, but totally valid. Because this is what I was saying. I could not help but think like, damn, Sarah, how was that for her to have the now ex-girlfriend claiming her territory almost and forcing these kids to call her mom.
Right.
I'm not a parent, but there's something in me that I don't know if it's just a primal kind of possessiveness, but I'm just like, how dare you? Like that gets me riled up, you know? So when she's talking about it in a very like, and maybe it's because time has passed and she's, you know, adjusted to it, but I could not help but want to ask her, oh my God, what was that like for you to have another woman come in and just act like she's mom?
And like, replace you pretty much.
And try and replace you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's completely invalidating.
Right. But all she cares about is her kids. And that's the thing that I always come back to with Sarah. That is so admirable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the wanting to punch a bitch. Yes.
Yes.
I really liked the way that you framed this for her, that you... What? You know what I'm going to say?
No, I don't, but I want you, like, I'm hoping
that I picked up on what you were laying down.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that you saw her anger and her expression of her emotions as a good thing, right? You were like, hell yeah, I want you to want to punch a bitch right now, right? Like, feel your feelings. This 100%. Is what we've been working on.
Yeah, and this is something that our listeners have been at different times over the years sensitive to things like this, where Sarah or Drew will let something fly in the session and they'll be like, oh my gosh, that was offensive. How could they say that? Or wow, that was not cool, not okay. This is a therapy session where it is closed door. Yeah. And they're getting to peek inside and hear it. So if somebody is getting angry or letting something fly or saying something, I don't want them to filter that at all.
No, this is humanness. Right. This is humanity.
This is where you get angry and you say whatever it is you need to say, however you need to say it, to start to make sense of it and to feel it. And this was her coming fresh off the eulogy, like I was telling you about. I was going in like, okay, we just had the poem. It was beautiful.
Where's
this?
That,
But something amazing happened. And I think I connected it in the session a little bit where she was very in touch with her emotions when she was reading the poem.
Of course.
And we wanted to bring that out more. And we wanted to keep that raw. Yeah. Here she is also expressing her emotions in a raw way, which is what you're picking up. Like, bring it out. Say you want to punch a bitch. That's great.
Authenticity. It's genuine. Yeah. And here's the thing. Clients get so scared of their own emotions. And I'm like, your emotions are not your actions. Like, you are not your emotions. It's just a part of this response that you're having right now. And it's completely human and valid and quote unquote normal. This is okay to feel this way. And the actual inverse of not feeling this way and suppressing and stifling it is actually where the problem lies. The emotion itself is fine. It's how you relate to it.
Totally. It's a Buddhist thing that the thought arises. It's not yours. You're not responsible for the thought. Yeah. The thought just can't, even when I have clients that will have like these intrusive, violent thoughts.
Totally. Yeah.
If they think, oh gosh, I can't have that thought. That's not okay.
Right. See, it's the second thought. It's the automatic thoughts are automatic for a reason. Like we can't control them. It's how you respond to the thoughts and the feelings that really is the work. Like that's what we're doing.
That's where I've said there's 3 stages of it. One is the thought arises. We can't control that. It just happens. The second is, do we entertain it?
Yeah.
And some of that entertaining might be, do I process that?
Yeah, do I reappraise it or do I accept it?
Or do I entertain it, like play it out? And what would that look like? And what would that be like? That's also fairly normal. That's okay to do. Yes. Especially in a therapy session.
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Then the third level is, do I act on it?
Yes. And then if it's okay, do I act on it? Like, what control do I have here?
Exactly.
Right? Like, do I even have control? And if I don't, we're kind of back to steps 2 or 3 or whatever it was of like, just bringing awareness to it and accepting it and maybe diffusing a little bit from it, which can look like just distancing from it. Like, okay, that's a thought I'm having, right?
Right. And sometimes, you know, I'm big on this, as you heard in this session and over the years. Well, not you, over the year.
Over the year.
Right. Is there might be something that is built up, might be the cortisol and the adrenaline or the fight or flight that we need to physically release. Our body will keep that score, so let that out somewhere. Right? Release that somewhere, somehow. We need to discharge that. Right. It's not just like, oh, very zen. There's the thought and I'm entertaining it and processing it. And now I'm okay. Yeah. No, you might need to like scream into a pillow, punch a bag.
Sometimes it is just extra energy that needs to be released.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what's funny, though? This is what I was going to talk about earlier. I have seen research that says if you're angry, it's actually not best to let it out physically. And it's better to not hold it in, but to, you know, journal or meditate or like mindful, something that is not actually so physical and aggressive, because that can actually make you more angry and physical and aggressive.
I would agree with that only in the sense of it is creating a pathway where I get angry, I let it out, and this is how I let it out. It's sort of like
the only way I
cognitive behavioral training, right? It's how we train dogs, right? Very
you're
Pavlovian.
going to classically condition yourself to associate being angry with hitting a punching bag.
Right.
I guess what you're probably getting at is you want to have tools in the toolbox that are not just physical aggression.
Right. Because that's her ex. And she's mentioned it before. We used to punch holes in the wall.
Right. And for a lot of men, and not to be gender stereotyped here, but I think because of the patriarchy and the way that we've kind of framed male aggression and anger, like the only tools that they've been given are aggression.
Right.
Having more tools in the toolbox is always a good thing for everyone. But, having just physical exertion.
Well, and that's why I think having one tool as physical release of something, okay, you want more tools than that. You also want more tools than let me just meditate and be mindful. But you want a few different tools, right?
Well, so I think there is something to be said, though, for physical exertion, like exercise, right? I think that's why there's such a, it comes highly recommended, I think, by doctors and therapists of all sorts, right? Like scientists, whatever. Exercise. Exercise is a great tool to have in the toolkit.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be punching a punching bag, but it can be.
Right.
For anger or anxiety or any feelings. It's just something about that energy that's like coursing through your veins, which is really just cortisol and adrenaline that you got to get out. Or you got to use. I think I like that term better than get out. Like you have to use it, Like if you've got that energy, use it.
I like that. I often say we need to discharge that, right?
Yeah.
But it might be,
but it's going to come back
can we harness
at some
it?
point?
Can we use it somewhere?
Yeah, make it helpful and productive maybe.
Yeah, it's like vibranium.
Healthy. Sure. Wait, what's that from again? Vibranium?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fuck.
You can get there.
Well, it's not Rick and Morty.
No.
It's not Guardians of the Galaxy, is it?
That's very close. It's in that world.
Yeah, it's the Avengers, isn't it? It's the blue stuff.
I
did know this.
It's so from Wakanda in Black Panther.
Yes, that's
where
it.
They harvest it.
Yep.
That's what
I knew
Captain America's shield's made out of.
Yeah. I didn't know you were
It absorbs
a
the
Marvel.
energy from somebody, and you're able to harness it and throw it back.
There
right?
you go. Of course,
Yep.
you would take it there to an analogy,
to a pop movie analogy.
I didn't know you were a Marvel guy.
Sure.
Nerd.
Do you marvel at me?
Nerd.
Wow, that's pot calling kettle black.
Hey, but I'm a nerd. I'm a cool nerd. I nerd out on cool things. Troy and I have this discussion all the time.
How much time do you spend in the library?
The library? Like an online library?
No, at school. How much time have you spent in the library?
At school?
Yeah.
Oh, all my time.
Yep. There you go, Hermione.
I loved being in the library. It's such a vibe. Like everyone's studying and it's... Are you calling me Hermione? I'm flattered, actually. She's a badass. I love Hermione. Thank you so much, Doug. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
You're welcome, nerd. Go ahead.
Okay, the next little blurb I have here, I actually don't know what I'm talking about, but I think it's good.
Perfect.
So maybe we should get into it.
Bring it on.
I think she's just talking about her ex and just the abuse that she tolerated, I think, because she said something about being attached to the abuse. And we were talking about codependency. So I just think that's interesting. And hindsight is 20/20, and it's familiarity, right? Like, there's comfort in the familiar.
That's what she was saying. And she was talking about how there was something about being attached to. Like, she connects being scared of the abuse, but she also said being attached to it. Mm-hmm. It's what she got used to growing up. And that's what she learned that love was like, and what she learned that was.
Yeah.
It was also a throwback to when she heard my mom breaking it down when she didn't have an identity in the cult.
Oh, yes. That was my next little thing.
There, go ahead. Take it away.
Well, okay. So she said, they didn't give me an identity, the cult people and her family, right?
Right.
And you tweaked it and you said, they didn't allow me to have an identity.
Right.
I mean, I think I understand that and I see it. They didn't give me an identity. I want to know your thoughts and intentions with that tweak, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Like semantics, right?
It's very, very simple.
But it has meaning, yeah.
Of course. I mean, that's what neurolinguistic programming and all of that is based on.
Nerd. Yeah. I'm here for it. Yes,
all right, we're going to have a nerd off later.
I like language.
I know you do.
So hit me. Why'd you tweak it like that? Go.
Very simply, she was saying essentially somebody giving me an identity versus having an identity of my own.
And allowing you to express your identity.
Right. Allowing you to define yourself and have that as your identity and then bringing that out. Right?
Cool.
So that was the tweak. It was just very simply oh, it wasn't for them to give you an identity, which they did do.
Right.
Essentially, they gave her an identity.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
So when she says they didn't give me an identity, well, I could have gone to, well, they did. Your identity was lamb, follower, right?
Little fawn.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And I went instead to, well, wait, it's not about them giving it to you. It's about you allowing yourself to have it.
Yeah. And to have an authentic, true expression of yourself that she clearly was not able to really harness and develop until later in life.
In fact, made it the opposite. Instead of them giving you an identity, they took it from you and then told you what it was.
Yeah. And then that landed you in relationships that confirmed that.
Right. We could even go further, and why this whole session hit something for me, which was, and I don't know if I used the term, I alluded to it later in the session, but the term reenactment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that in the intro, weren't we? Do you mean reenactment with others in life, like throughout life, and kind of reenacting the unhealthy patterns that you learned? Or do you mean in the therapy context?
Well, in both. Yeah. I mean, they're similar. In therapy terms, Freud uses it as reenacting, causing people to repeat traumatic experiences from their past.
And we do it usually unconsciously.
Yep.
Or at least that was his theory. But
we're like, God, why am I getting in this position again? Why am I with this person again?
Yeah, here I go again. Yeah.
And it's re-traumatizing ourselves. Besser van der Kolk, right? You know who that is?
He's very, controversial, but yes.
Sure, because of the Me
got
Tooing and what happened to him.
Yeah.
Sure. His work on trauma, you know, what he said about behaviors that are associated with somebody's history of trauma that keep repeating in subsequent relationships, that's reenactment, right?
Right.
And I actually screenshot this so you can see this. My mom wrote papers, co-authored papers. I think she worked with Bessel van der Kolk and she worked with a few others. Yeah. And
that's kind of a big deal.
There's a screenshot right there.
Oh, interesting.
There's my mama's name.
Oh my God.
There's her name, co-author.
That's cool.
Right?
Does she have a PhD or a PsyD? Or?
She does not. That's why she hardly ever got mentioned in these things.
Yeah.
She's an LMFT. And in a lot of articles and a lot of talks that these guys gave, she wasn't even mentioned. They took a lot of her work, but she was talking about for Sarah, what's happening to her kids is traumatizing. It is traumatizing for the experience as a mother and seeing her kids go through this, and this is happening to her in the present.
Right.
It's also bringing her back to the past.
When she was there.
Right. Yeah. And that's sort of the reenactment of what's going on, that why do I keep getting triggered? Why do I keep falling into this? I loved that she said, oh, right. There's something that is familiar and comfortable about this. There's something that
I'm attached to the abuse, is what she said. And attached doesn't mean good. It doesn't mean
it doesn't mean
healthy.
I like or approve of.
No, it just means you feel attached to it. It feels so almost safe and familiar to the point of sheer comfort. And so why change it? The familiar pain, you know?
I say that all the time, that we find comfort in the things that are familiar, but they're not comfortable.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we like it.
They're just comforting.
Yeah. And often people come to therapy because they want to change that, but it's so hard to change something that is so deeply embedded in you that it's like automatic and unconscious.
Yep. And that's exactly what I brought back to her from the session before. It's like, ooh, yeah, there's my in to connect it.
Yeah. The badge of honor.
Exactly. Yep.
Sorry, please take it away, Doug.
No, go.
That was a good connection from the eulogy. Like her badge of honor has changed after, I think she said her 2 years of being single, right? And building up her own identity. We were talking about that she wasn't given or wasn't, allowed to have.
Right.
Gosh, if I were her, I just got angry for her just thinking about it. Like the fact that she had to wait so long to really express herself and feel out who she is. Like I just got a wave of anger for her. I don't know if it's that like feminine rage, but
well, it's also somebody who's trying to hold her new badge of honor internally. Like, this is who I am and this is how I am.
Yeah.
And then this happens and there's a reenactment and it brings up the old trauma. There she is back in that. And she started this session. I did not scale her and check in with, okay, how angry are you? Or how, where are you on a scale? Because she started the session, I just want to punch a bitch and I couldn't believe this happened. That.
Yeah.
And then we get into who she really is and how she really wants to be and how she can be reparenting herself.
We're back to reparenting and breaking the cycle and showing her children that it's okay to have their feelings, even if there's no taking it away, there's no fixing it. It just is, and you're allowed to feel it.
Right. And that's how cool was she for saying earlier, like, I just had to be there and not fix it.
Yeah.
Right?
I love her.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Right now, I'm just sort of like guiding her, fanning her over to herself, like the flame back to her, guiding
That's
her
therapy.
Right.
That's good therapy.
Right. Just allowing her to be her own parent that she never had by observing her own child as though it's her. That's the reparative work.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I think is the healing part in sort of my ninja way of like, okay, well, you're doing that through your kid.
Yeah.
Listen to what you're saying to him. That's what you needed to hear too.
I like it because I think it works for Sarah. It's almost like pragmatic and realistic. And I think it makes sense to her in a way that maybe 5 times a week psychoanalysis would almost overcomplicate things for her or even re-traumatize her. I think this is a really
she'd be in the cult of psychoanalysis,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exchanging one cult for another.
Right.
Okay. That's another topic. Okay. So I don't know if I'm just projecting here. This happens a lot, but I'm thinking her ex, who is a piece of shit, narcissistic asshole. I don't know, whatever we want to call it. Okay.
Well, and I'll just say we're hearing one side of it.
Totally. Right? And I was going to preface that with this is the Kenzie, not the therapist, saying that he sounds like a narcissistic asshole.
Right.
I'm biased, obviously. I've heard only Sarah's side of the story and I care for her. So, of course. But we've got him, regardless actually of his side of the story, the fact that she feels the way she does about him, I'm wondering, there's got to be a part that is kind of happy, satisfied that they are breaking up. Ooh, a taste of your own medicine, or like, ooh, fuck you. Like, I really don't think that she went there in the session, but I'm like, damn, is there really no part of her that is like weirdly satisfied that he's in pain? And I know that sounds horrible, but
it's funny because I'm thinking back to how I've worked with her. And I would say, yes, of course, there's a part of her that's human and there has to be.
Exactly.
However, that is very quickly overtaken by her tremendous care for the well-being of her kids.
I think, it's
and that she doesn't want her ex to be in turmoil.
Right, because then it has a trickle-down effect on her kids.
Not just that, but on her. Yeah. When her ex is in a healthier relationship or a healthier place, it's easier for her to co-parent. So even for her, not just better for her kids, but better for her in relation to her kids. If there weren't kids anymore, or if the kids are off in college or doing their own thing, then maybe it's great. I just want this guy out of my life entirely. And I hope he I don't think she ever really wishes ill on anybody.
No, really. That's what I really don't think she does. I was like, I don't know if she does. Like, genuinely. She was actually the opposite and more flabbergasted by the idea of someone judging someone for a breakup.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, even your ex who you hate, like that's so admirable, honestly. Like she really is inspiring, I think, as a human.
It's interesting too, because what we're talking about is how deeply and how fully Sarah can look for and find the good in people. Right. Contrast that with when she has talked to me a lot in the beginning and over the course of treatment about the people in the cult and going, they're just bad. How could somebody be just bad?
I don't understand.
Exactly. Right? Because this is who she truly is. She's somebody that wants to see the good in people. She
wants to understand and wants to give people the benefit of the doubt. But the cult really kind of broke that. That part.
It bent it. It didn't break it.
It bent it. Yeah. It certainly
bent it severely.
Yeah. It tested her.
Totally.
And she still came out the other end resilient as hell and saying, you know what? I still see the good in humanity.
Totally.
That's amazing.
Yep.
And that's all I've got. No, but okay. Instead of being satisfied or happy that they're breaking up, I think she sees it in a way too that's more hopeful that this could be a family bonding experience.
Right.
Right. And that's really healthy. And I also really appreciate and respect that.
Yeah. I like how she's walking through this. And I think for this whole session, as the therapist, I loved how she walked through it because she got to go to the emotional place. She got to be angry, go underneath the anger, look at what it was doing for her in terms of the reenactment, what it was bringing up, and go to, and maybe this can bring the family together, right? There's no part of her that's like, screw him, screw that household, just be here with me. I'm going to try to get custody. I'm going to win. No, that's not her MO at all.
It's not. It could be. It could have been.
But that's not her.
But it's not. It's just not her.
And she could have let her ex make her into that, and she didn't. That's where her true identity is.
Oh.
Right?
Yep. She didn't need them to allow
Where's that? I'm waiting for the chef's kiss.
What? Oh.
There you go. There you go.
It is chef's kiss.
That's how I know I've done well by you.
Love a good therapy session. Well, you tied it up in a bow, Doug. I mean, the identity, there it is. Boom. Like she is carrying a different badge of honor at this point.
True. And you know what the best badge of honor for our identity would be?
A review.
That's right.
Very nice.
So guys,
Very
rate
nice.
us, review us, come back to us next week, and we will be here talking at you again.
Mm-hmm. With
Drew.
Ooh.
Bye.
Bye-bye.